All right, it's showtime. Welcome, everybody, to the Two Brothers Fishing Podcast here on the Hickman Outdoors YouTube channel, presented by American Legacy Fishing, world class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, before we get to tonight's special guest, let me take a moment to tell everyone this is the time to join American Legacy's elite program. $50 to sign up for your first year. You get 25 back in legacy rewards, 10% back on all orders in legacy rewards, free shipping, and access to the exclusive Facebook group and those awesome sales. American Legacy also has the best trade-in program and most extensive collection of used gear you can find online. And don't forget, if you're in the Evansville, Indiana area, you can stop by and check out the newly remodeled showroom. Graham and Kayla, Brian, the crew would be happy to show you around. All right, now that we got that out of the way, boom, you notice we got a substitution in tonight. My other Freedom Squad brother to make up Two Brothers Fishing, Mr. Matt OEF5 has joined us live tonight. And if you wonder where Jeremy is, Jeremy's had a little bit of an emotional week. Also, would you say emotional
Week?
about the
Yes,
way it is?
very. I talked to him last night, and I
Yeah,
think
dude, I did too, and
that was not a good time.
I was heartbroken. I mean, I was hurting as I was sitting there petting Gunner. But for those who may not have known, Jeremy's in the process of moving from Indianapolis down to next. He's got some property next door to my father, and he's put a place on there. And he's in the process of kind of moving. He can't fully move because his lease on his apartment up in Indy doesn't run out till next summer. But he's in the middle of moving a bunch of stuff down, his bait making stuff, his do it molds. He's going to have a studio set up in his new place. So he and Bullet were unloading the truck, and apparently Bullet, his service dog in training, 3-year-old puppy, must have caught the scent of a deer or something, because next thing you know, Jeremy looks up and can't find puppy dog. And so he's like, he's out running around doing whatever. He'll be fine, even though it's dark. Well, again, this is a city dog, first time really out in the country, other than visiting my dad. But what we're guessing is he must have caught the scent of a deer or a coyote heat or something, but disappeared. And 7 days later, as of yesterday, we hadn't seen hide or heard. I mean, we had Humane Society had made a bunch of posts. We had people driving around, all these farm areas, Amish communities, and so forth, trying to find Bullet with no luck. Well, as it turns out, and Matt, I'll tell you, I mean, after talking to Jeremy last night, he'd all but given up hope, because today he had to go back up to Indianapolis because he has VA appointments today and then a meeting with his psychiatrist tomorrow. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little fearful for his safety and health. He was really, really in a hurting state. That's one thing that service dogs are one thing, especially emotional support, PTSD support. Bullet has been trained to detect and respond to Jeremy when he's having an anxiety attack and things like that, which is why, if we're out of state fishing, they're together 24/7 everywhere he goes. On a whim, my cousin Brian, who lives in the area, who's a fan of the show, was off this afternoon, and knowing that there is an ice storm coming in this weekend with like high of 6, low of 0, lots of potential ice and rain, he said, "I'm just going to spend the afternoon until dark to go do some searching." And search he did. And then I get this phone call from Jeremy about 4 o'clock. And apparently my cousin Brian had spotted a German Shepherd in a field behind my father's house. And Jeremy was completely out of breath because apparently wherever he was at in the hospital, ran back to his truck and was doing about 100 miles an hour on 69 coming south back to Bramble. He made a 90-minute drive in probably 61 minutes. But Brian couldn't get the dog to come to him, but my youngest son and my niece, who Bullet well knows, went out to the fields with Brian to try to draw him, coax him in, and they were able to get their hands on him. And yes, it was Bullet, a little skinnier, needs a bath, but yeah, it was a pretty emotional afternoon. I'm not gonna lie, when when my son sent me a picture of Jeremy hugging Bullet, and then Jeremy called me. Jeremy was driving back to his place, and you can hear Bullet I'm not going to call it a whine, but like a cry. He was so happy to be with Jeremy, and I literally at work, just tears running down my face. Very emotional afternoon, but knowing that they're okay. there is the man of the day right there, Brian. Thank you.
Awesome job, Brian.
Thank you. You saved probably 2 lives today. I mean, that was it was really something else, and it's almost hard to talk about too. But I mean, so Matt's filling in with Jeremy tonight. I'm sure Jeremy will be in the chat at some point when he gets back up to his place back up in Indy. But he knew he wasn't going to be in any. He knew he wasn't going to be in any shape to try to come on tonight, even though he, like me and Matt, are big friends, big fans of our guest tonight. Let's go ahead and bring him in, Mr. Jeff Little of the Little Stuff YouTube channel. What is up, good sir?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Oh, honestly, much better today.
Yes. It's gotten cold here though.
Yeah.
As you just explained it. So
it's time for me to run south. My next my next run's going to be down in Texas in Louisiana. So
oh wow,
that's just a shame.
Yep,
that's awful.
Yeah, I guess I'm running away from winter here in Maryland to I run a little bit in that direction, going to North Carolina a good bit, but Texas and Louisiana, where I talked to Dustin Nichols a few days ago. He was like, yeah, it's 76. I'm like, yeah, I'm coming.
I was on a conference call today with some people, and one of the ladies lives in Huntsville now in Alabama. And she was like, oh, it got cold here. And I'm like, you just moved down there. It's not even cold yet down there. Like, gosh.
Yeah, and it's like, as far as how I'm doing, it's like I'm currently kayakless for the first time in probably 12 years. Being on the Old Town Pro staff, I actually sold both of my. I've got an autopilot and then the paddle 106 that I use as a loaner kayak. But Old Town's like, hey, we got all these new colors. It'd be nice for our pro staff, kind of got some of the new ones out there and get them ordered too. So we're going to be rocking some new colors, and some new stuff this year. So it'll be kind of interesting.
What is your next build?
I don't even know yet. I got money put aside. I've seen the video of like where you've taken and put motors on the back of like the 120 PDL, or I think you did it on the one of the.
It was a big water 132. Yeah.
But I've always said if I was going to put a Torqeedo or something on, maybe if I figured out a way to really do it well on like a 120, but I haven't decided yet. I know I've got, probably I'm going to take my time and really figure out what I want to do this year. I know in my heart this year, I want to spend a lot more time in the creeks, in the rivers, chasing smallmouth bass. I've spent the last 40 years chasing largemouth. And one of my last trips out, and funny enough, I went and met with a buddy of mine and went up to Lafayette to chase some smallies on a cold day, drove all the way up there and forgot my motor for my autopilot. So I'm up there actually kayaking.
You paddled that thing all day?
Yeah, we were only out there from like 1 till dark. So I paddled the whole time we were up there. But I was doing my best OEF5 impression. I'm kayaking because I get spoiled with that.
Been paddling a lot more, and I don't know. I mean, when you sell Torqeedo motors, like, you feel guilty not using the product. I know it sounds funny, but I still love my motors, and I do things, especially on that Susquehanna River, that I cannot do with a pedal drive or anything. I need the motor. But here and there, I've been doing these trips where I'm like, I don't need it. I'm going to paddle up, a mile and a half. I know a spot. Let's just go do that. And it makes it easier with those drag-in places that it's like, all right, don't leave the motor and the battery in the truck, and it's really not that far. But
it's good. I mean, honestly, it's good exercise, and I always try to paddle some, especially in the autopilot. I used to really get my leg workouts in when I had the pedal drive, right? And then I would paddle some for like an upper body kind of to go with it, because I know as a bigger guy, there can be some dangers if I get too far out of shape. And so, my goal this last year is I'm going to get back in shape because, like I said, I want to be able to drag the creeks and do a whole lot more and be a lot more. So, I'm about
shape
halfway there.
Is part of it, but one thing I did really right at the transition from moving from Torquedo to working for Boondocks is I did something I haven't done since 2001, and I earned ACA, American Canoe Association certification as a paddling instructor, and I was able to rope in, Russ Snyder's and Drew and Wade Clements, and it's Kevin from Kaku Kayak was part of it, and Dustin from Raccoon Creek. We all certified together, and it's going to be good coming back to one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but like in-person teaching. I'm probably going to do groups of 5 with following the Kayak Adventure series. I'm going to do my classes right after that, so it's going to be in different places. But I think a lot of what I taught, because I did, I was a kayak fishing instructor for 10 years. In 2001, I earned ACA certification, did 10 years teaching people how to fish out of kayaks when people weren't even thinking about fishing out of kayaks. And, a lot of that face-to-face instruction was what fed, what really prepared me for a lot of videography that I did. In fact, the first video that I did was a DVD that was my river kayak fishing skills class. And you can actually go on the YouTube channel and find that river kayak fishing skills DVD. So that's some of the kind of stuff that I'm going to be teaching again. But it's not just paddling skills. It's it's applying paddling skills to to things like, okay, we're going to skip Senkos up underneath the dock, and we're going to use a draw stroke to move the kayak to exactly the right spot, so your skip goes deep into that little slot. Boat positioning is critical, and a draw stroke is something that really helps you do that.
And see, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on tonight, because this last year, we've really used the channel going from, we started a couple years ago during COVID, teaching the basic how to fish. I had a friend of mine who had a young son. She went go fishing with her dad when she was little. So she knew about fishing, she just didn't know how to fish. So she was like, hey, can you make me some, basic how-tos? And that's literally where we started. And then, Matt, Jeremy, and I have always kind of played in kayaks because of where we lived, and it just kind of worked. And then, it was one of those, kind of grew into that. But I actually saw a video that you did, because after we got back from the national championship in Kentucky Lake a couple years ago, we went just because we wanted to meet all these people that we loved watching online, and use the KBF Challenge Series mayhem to get there. And we're not no tournament anglers. We're just there to go gawk over everybody and meet Chad and Fluke Master and Christine and all the people that we've kind of watched, but
you
and yes, and I hadn't really even watched you that much until you did that like docu-series following Russ around. I was like, holy cow, and then I went back and I found like the safety video that you did. I think Tracy, old lady angler, was attending one of your classes, and she filmed it. And I was like, this is stuff people need to learn. And so I've told Jeremy and Matt that because you guys, you have such a wide variety of skills, people can live on your channel and learn so much about so many different things. But this year with us doing at KBF, doing the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series, where we had so many people fishing from the bank and the kayaks qualify to come to the Hero Cup, we had a lot of brand new kayak anglers this year who have learned the basic skills, but I think would truly benefit from watching your channel, especially the safety videos.
Here's, here it is. And this all the way over here, this thing, it says playlists. If you're getting ready to rig a boat, you go in there and there's a playlist on kayaks and kayak rigging. Want to learn how to, put landing gear on it, or You want to learn how to do the electronics. Like I did a really exhaustive one down at Westbrook about a year ago with Mike and Fletch, and we did a little bit of everything on that RVR 119. But that kayaks, and kayak rigging one is really in depth. The kayak fishing skills has a lot of even what I just mentioned, like the draw stroke, or there's just a lot of different things in there. But this is the thing that I really like that I did this year is I put for every month all of the different, I think it's 33 different videos that I've published in January going back years.
Yeah.
So this is going to give you January. Now understand it's a mid-Atlantic perspective, but some of these are, where I've been on the road and been Gulf Coast and there's some redfish stuff in there, or, it jumps around a little bit. But if you're looking at, okay, what are the patterns that are coming up, especially for the river smallmouth stuff? You want to get into the smallmouth stuff. You got a year, you have a goal this year of getting better at river smallmouth. Say you get to the end of February, you got to binge watch some March content on there and really start to understand what it is when they're gonna move away from their winter holes and start spreading out and start going up their tributaries or start moving towards the places that eventually they will spawn. And usually they don't do that in March, or they might pop off a few in April, depending on how far south you are. But my point is that, I have it organized in those playlists to be of maximum benefit for you for whatever it is that you're looking for. You want to get into the inflatable kayak deal, there's a whole playlist on that. You want to do tackle crafting, there's an extensive list on tackle crafting and including rod building.
Jeremy and I both work with Do It Molds, and I can't tell you how many times that we've even gone through and said, you've got to go check out some of the outside of the box thinking that he's doing, and that we also help incorporate that, or a lot of people for going back and watching your different videos. And folks, I mean, like you said, rigging kayaks, smallmouth, there's so many different
species,
so many different pieces on there.
If you guys can see this striper here, now that was caught on a big boat. That was actually a painting I did of a Chesapeake Bay striper, but it was based on a photo of me holding a personal best striper. There's a whole playlist on striped bass. There's one on redfish. There's one on walleye with a whole bunch of stuff with Chuck Earls up on Lake Erie, but even some stuff closer to home. So species by species, it's in there. And for sure there's a tidal largemouth one that really looks specifically at the largemouth that exist in these tidal systems, especially on the East Coast. There's a little bit of everything in there. So dig around in the playlist, you're going to get the maximum benefit out of like, I forget what I'm up to. I mean, I know I'm over 1,000 videos on there, but it's a
ton of great content in there.
1.1K videos.
So let's back up a little bit. How did you first get into kayaks? And then kind of from there, how did you get into the kayak industry? Because you're like you're like the dude when it comes to inventing and coming up with a lot of great ideas and things.
1998 was the first time I fished out of a kayak. And I grew up in Rockville, Maryland, a suburb of DC. And I had I think it was about an 8-mile bike ride before I got my driver's license to get to Swains Lock, where I would, the C&O Canal, where I could, rent a canoe and paddle up the watered section of the canal, drag it over the bank and fish my way back down, that section of the Potomac. And then I got my driver's license and would get the family canoe and go all kinds of other places. But it was sometime after I graduated from the University of Maryland, and I'm in the family 17-foot aluminum Grumman canoe sitting in the, in the back or in the front seat facing backwards to balance it out on a super windy day in March. And wind was blowing straight up the river and I couldn't even float downstream. Like, it was so frustrating to me. And I was just thinking, there's got to be a better way. And it didn't click right then, but I was like, what? This isn't it. This is not working. Smaller canoe, but then later that summer we did with some buddies, we did a camping, week long or weekend long, like a 3-day weekend camping float trip. And, I'm catching fish on a zero spook, and I just hand a rod to my buddy who's not really an angler, but he's in a skirted boat, a kayak. I think it was a pirouette, but a skirted kayak, a creek boat. And I'm like, Mark, do this. Like, they're hitting top water. This is too much fun. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, no, you need to do this. And he's like, all right. And, very inexperienced as an angler, but he started catching them, and I stopped fishing and watched him. Is that it? It's not that boat, because he would catch fish and it would spin him around. And I'm like, he just looks like he's getting dizzy, but he's having fun. Maybe a different kayak. And then the next year, it was like in the spring, I'm like, I'm buying a kayak. And, took it out and, went down through, when they built the C&O Canal, and George Washington had control of the company that built that. He had property out, west, and he was trying to open commerce out there. They built the C&O Canal well. And that's why that section, up to about Swain's Lock is still watered, or it has been for most of the time that I grew up. I actually saw a picture of it recently, and it was dry. But the whitewater guys would use, they would go up as far as Violet's Lock, paddle across the top of Seneca Breaks, and then there's this whitewater course that was where they built another canal that was like a construction canal. I went and did that in the canoe. I'd actually already run through like most of Harper's Ferry, because I was like, in this Old Town Loon 138, like enjoying running whitewater. And yes, I was fishing, along the way. But I flipped. I got through this big wave train and intentionally, not knowing any better, drifted right up against a log to like stabilize so I could turn around and take a picture of this big rapid I just went through, and it went thunk, and I got flipped underneath the strainer, not knowing it was a strainer, which is any object that water passes through, but you and your kayak may not. I lost a lot of gear. It was early in the season. I was hypothermic pretty quick, and it was just, I popped up and I said, I need an education. And
well, that's where I was going to go. Were you not ever scared or worried? I mean, see, I'm still fearful of.
I was 20 something. I was stupid and
Okay.
resilient. Like, stupid and resilient being 20 something is like,
that was my Army days.
The only reason that we're still here. Yeah. Cause I don't know, man. There's been twice in my life where I've thought it's been a good run, and both times have been kayak fishing related in my early 20s. One was hypothermia related and one was related to an anchor. But that moment, I didn't know. I just know that, hey, that situation was much fun. And I got a different boat, and I started taking whitewater classes, and then I took swiftwater rescue classes, and I said, this is so much fun. Like, I'm learning new things. I'm learning how to do a throw bag. I'm learning how to get pinned boats unstuck. Like, it was cool. Like, the whole whitewater scene then was huge. But I said, I want to teach people, and I think I want to guide, but I think I'm gonna need insurance. And I tried to get insurance from all sorts of different companies that insured like raft guides or anything else. And they're just like, you want to do what? You want to take people in kayaks and catch fish? You're nuts. Go away. But then I learned that the American Canoe Association would give you liability insurance if you certified under their program. So
No.
I took the, you know, I got the whitewater certification. It was tough because I was in there with a bunch of whitewater crazies, and I was not in it for like that level of, you know, it was more than I signed up for. But I got through it and I got a certification, and that was the beginning of my teaching people. And you know, on top of this framework of you know, your paddling strokes and your river, you know, your river safety, and you know, the mechanics of setting up a float trip with the logistics and all of these skills that people who are beginners need to know how to do, I was overlaying angler skills like stealth approaches. You know, those of us that hunt, I'm not a hunter, but I understand. I watch hunters and I'm like, they get it. But fishermen don't. We're stupid. We make noises and we do things to let them know, hey, we're here. And then they're like, why aren't they biting? So stealth approaches was one of the things I taught. Forage assessment, figuring out, okay, are they eating topwater? If they are, what it is it, you know, what are they looking for up there? Are they picking cicadas off the surface, or is there some kind of damselfly, or is there just some kind of, you know, are they fishing at the, you know, understanding what it is they're looking for. Assessing the forage is another one. But the biggest thing I was teaching was pattern development. And developing a pattern, the point of that is to have replicatable success in catching fish. And it comes down to the right location and the right presentation. And when you catch a fish, you go to the location where you've caught that fish, and you make observation. Oh, it was on a, you know, there's a current seam. There's like really calm water here and really fast water here. So current seam is part of that location. It's about 3 feet deep, and there's a log right on that current seam. And you know, you stick your paddle down there, and it's a crunchy, you know, gravelly bottom, right? So that's a set of observations about that location. Okay. And then you say, well, what was the presentation? Well, I was throwing a crankbait and I dragged it across the current seam right up at the top of it. Okay. Was it grinding the bottom? Was it somewhere in the middle of the water column? No, it was grinding bottom, you know. Okay, what was the bait? Or what, you know, what was, how fast was the bait moving? And somewhere down there is color. I don't know why everyone focuses on color first. Like, what color are you throwing? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? I want to know how fast it was moving way before. I want to know, was it a tight wobble, or was it a real wide wobble on that crankbait? All those details about the motion, how it was moving is, you know, so you make those observations about location and presentation, and then you catch a second fish and you make the observations about, you know, the same things, location and presentation. And then you catch a third fish and you start looking for common denominators, and maybe, you know, you've caught them on crankbaits and it's that hard bottom, but it isn't always near the current seam. There isn't always a log there. Sometimes it's the tail end of an eddy and there's just nothing else out there. Or sometimes you catch them on the crankbait and it's grinding the bottom right at the base of a grass bed. But it's all about 3 foot deep and you're moving at about the same speed. You have to replicate that and know that when you cast it and you feel it grinding and it's like, no, it's on sand, or I've thrown it out there and it doesn't dive all the way down. It's in open water. You're not getting bit. So what are you doing? You're looking for that hard bottom with gravel, 3 feet, you know, and you just want to grind bottom with that crankbait. You replicate that presentation in that type of location. And to teach that to so many people one-on-one on the water. I did most of my classes back then one-on-one, but I'm going to be doing 5 per class moving forward. It really helps people become successful, more successful quickly in handling the boat, but also just all of these different angling skills. And when we can speed up someone's learning curve and make them better kayak anglers, I make a living in this sport, in this industry, and I need people to not take it up for a year and be so. I need them to get into it and be successful and stick around.
Yeah.
Because if they go and they take up pickleball, we've lost them.
Right.
Apparently we've lost Cody Milton to pickleball. I don't know if anyone knows that.
I kind of wondered where he, but I mean,
we lost him to pickleball.
Yeah,
pickleball.
and what you say makes
in
complete
doing
sense.
pickleball. I've heard it
Yeah,
from
and
3 or 4 different people, and he's winning money in tournaments and enjoying it. But
I want to go back.
It wasn't for any lack of success on Cody's point. He's, I think he's a human being that would be good at all sorts of different things.
Oh, well, except walking down hills when he can fall and get both his eyes blacked and.
Yeah, he's all
he
in.
Looked a mess. Oh no, I know, but he looked a mess.
Yeah.
We're talking about a little story at the national championship.
It's
in the video. I want to go back. You were talking about logistics of doing river floats.
Yeah.
So, what's the biggest thing for anybody that's new? What is the biggest thing that you have to take into account on any type of river float like that that you need to do first?
You need to take the keys for the vehicle that's at the end.
You got to make sure you have those keys.
I say that, but everyone has a story of like, oh, I left him in your glove box. Oh, in my truck that's up at the top. Yeah, I guess that was dumb. Like, I've been part of that. I didn't do it, but I had a friend that left him in my glove box. I'm like, what part of, like, the one-way trip down a river do you not understand? Like, and we walked back up to get it, but there's a lot that goes into it. You do want to research the river and understand what the hazards are that are out there. And I don't know if I can reach up and grab one, but I get these whitewater guidebooks. Here's one for Pennsylvania called Keystone Canoeing by Edward Gertler. But good tackle or good paddle shops, will have maps and different guidebooks that can talk you through, hey, I want to go check out. Actually, there's one I want to check out. Maybe I shouldn't name it. But there's a tributary of the James River that I cross on my way from Maryland down to Thomasville, North Carolina, which is where Boondocks, where they make everything. I'm going to fish it with my buddy Wade Clements, who works for Yak Attack, and we're going to do, and there's videos on the YouTube channel on doing the Google Map search that gives you a certain amount, but like if the river was up when they have the, when they took that image, you're not going to see that it's a class 2 rapid. You're only going to see that if they took the imagery when it was lower. So you need to research what are your access points, your put-ins and your takeouts, how long it is between each access points, and what is, what are the hazards that are on there? I'm trying to pick one for you that,
because we learned one of the lessons, especially between Google Earth and Google Maps, using Google Earth to be able to go back and see the pictures from overhead over several years.
So do you see that there are like miles that are marked in between from this bridge to that bridge? It tells you that it's 4.8 miles or whatever it is. I can't really read that. I just picked this at random, but knowing that distance and being able to, to say, okay, that's 4.8 miles. We want to do a full day float trip. That's not enough. Let's bite off a little bit more. Yeah. And on average, if you do if you're fishing at about 1 mile per hour, is a good overall. If you're the type of person that really picks apart everything, you're going to do a little bit less. If the river's really cranking, it's going to push you a little further, and maybe you want to go, faster than 1 mile per hour. So the flow in how you fish really comes into play in terms of, but knowing those distance, you have to know those distances, because everyone, that river fishes has had stories, about, yeah, we thought we were going from this bridge to this bridge, but we missed that bridge and we went all the way down, and the next one down was 18 miles, and we slept out there. Okay.
We're actually pretty blessed here in Indiana, where the Indiana DNR has interactive maps, and not only do they have them with like all the boat ramps, but they also have like a paddling version of it that shows you put-ins, and then it shows the mileage, you know, down the river too. So it makes it really nice to be blessed with that kind of a setup.
Yeah, and there's state, you know, there's state run. I'm going to move away from where I was actually looking. There's state ramps, and then there's public access, and then there's places that you really got to research. I got to find another.
So I'm
looking at Onyx. That's what I'm doing right now.
You're on Onyx? Yeah.
Yes. And you basically can click on wherever it is. You see a bridge going across, and you see a piece of land there. And, you know, in Virginia, for instance, if I click on there, it's going to say this belongs to, and it lists the landowner. I'm trying to find another one. Or if it's public, like I just clicked on that and it says Virginia government lands, I'm allowed to be there, or Virginia hunt area. So it tells you whether you're legal or not. So
your recent video actually prompted me to look and see what was around here where I'm at.
Yeah.
Because there's a creek that I want to fish, but there's no put-ins. So after watching yours in Indiana, I don't know if they call them the same in other states, but they have GIS maps that are the property maps for all that. So I was able to get on the one that's interactive, and it's like, this bridge doesn't have any easements, but I found 2 upstream from it on Salt Creek, you know, not too far from me, where it does say that it's owned by my county, so that I know I can park there, and then I can also drag in there too. So you actually motivated me to go out, and it's like, I got to figure out how to get on this creek, and using those interactive maps, I was able to find a couple of different places.
So even when you are legal and you've done that research, sometimes with the local authorities, you're still in the wrong. And that is what Chad and I ran into somewhere in Virginia. And there's a video on it. And then there's a video of me going to court and having and winning. Like, the court case was thrown out because I put together, you know, a lot of evidence, and some of it was the Onyx or the Google Maps or the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries maps that said boat ramp this way. And like this, you know, one of the next places you could find water was that place where we both got ticketed for.
I remember that video.
Basically, it was really for where we parked, and it was using a Virginia Department of Transportation easement without, you know, I don't know. It was a not in my backyard person that knew somebody and called, you know, their buddy with enforcement with Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries to come and run us out of there. That being said, we both got tickets, and I went to court and I got it, you know, thrown out. But Chad and I both went further downstream and paid to launch somewhere and ran up this river to fish what I wanted to fish anyways. We had already gotten in there and we got called out. So we got up in there and fished it. And I think I got a really nice one on the way up. Like, I think it was an upper 4. It wasn't quite 5, but you know, sometimes
how did you go as a young man, you know, in a canoe and then your first kayaks? How did you kind of get from there to working in, you know, like working in the industry?
So I have a degree I have a bachelor's of science at University of Maryland from, you know, in dietetics, which is human nutrition. And I worked 21 years in healthcare food service. And I think it was 2016, from 2015 to 2016, I was running kitchens in nursing homes, and the Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement rates for nursing homes dropped like 17%, and bad things started happening in that industry. And the company I worked for, which was the biggest chain of nursing homes in the country, Golden Living, basically said, we're out. They're all for sale. We are getting out of this industry. And CMS said, whoa, you can't do that. Like, actually, we can. We're a business, and you've just made this business not profitable. Like nursing homes, they don't have good lobbyists in Washington, and they, you know, they're not like doctors or you know, big pharma or whatever. Anyways, it affected my work in a way that someone else bought it, and then I started getting paid less for something I'd done really well for a long time. And I was like, all right, I'm bringing home less money. This is unacceptable, and I got to get out. And I was going to do, I was hoping to be employed by Wilderness Systems because I had worked with them for a long time. And there were some people there that were like, yeah, we would love to have you. You would be amazing. Because I was their regional pro staff director for a number of years, and did good, you know, videos and good marketing for them, and went to a bunch of their trade shows. But they're like, we need you to move to South Carolina. And I was like, I'm not doing it. Like my wife, you know, she's a dairy farmer here in Maryland, and she ain't leaving her farm, and I ain't leaving her. So they're like, well, it's not going to work. But Torquedo was like, it doesn't matter where you live. You're going to run, you're going to travel. Like, you're always going to be on the road. And, you know, I talked with Jessica about it, and she's like, well, we need the money that they stop paying you. And it had turned into a chaotic job anyways. I think I held on to that career too long. But, you know, Torquedo for a little over 6 years has been it. And it was a wild ride. It was a lot of fun. And to work with, you know, a group of pro staffers that really were the best in tournament fishing, in not just kayak fishing, but in electric only John boat world as well. You know, Steve Turkla, I don't know if some people may know that name, but he was the president of Torquedo until about a year ago. Really has done, you know, along with Chad, that combo, those two men did some things that really grew the sport. And Steve's not a tournament. He's not a fisherman. He really isn't. He's not a kayaker. Yeah. He's done it. I think that Chad had dragged him out and said, look, you have to do this to understand, you know. But he was all in. He believed in us, and he loved the community, and he found ways to, you know, like with $100,000 purse for first prize in the national championship. You know, that triggered so much, and you know, it helped grow the sport and really get a lot of people into it. But I use that as an example. That was the one big example, but it was growing a team Torquedo that was, you know, the best of the best. And it was a lot of investment, and it was a lot of me following people around with a video camera, telling their stories. You know, not everyone is good at telling their own story. And I've enjoyed, you know, chasing members of Team Torquedo with a video camera, and being able to bring people to their genius on the water. And there's so many of them that have it, that I've filmed. So
yeah,
that's
Team
really
Torquedo is
cool.
pretty good. Like they are. When you said best of the best, I was going down that list, and I'm like, yep, that, like, it's amazing. And the way you do film, the way you tell that story is awesome. Like, I knew Russ. I didn't know him. I knew about Russ from Chad's first video in his first 10 of how he won the very first 10 in Florida. Right. Nobody knew anything about him or where he was from. And he had never been to the lake, never fished the lake, and laid the smackdown on people who were more experienced than him.
Right.
But then watching him continue,
I would argue the more experienced, but go ahead.
Well, I was saying on that lake. So
Yeah.
But watching him progress and do what he's doing now it's crazy. Like, he is so good.
I met him, I want to say in Gadsden, Alabama. And Chad called me and was like, there's this guy, Russ. He's having trouble with his 403. Can you, he basically called me and said, hey, can you pit crew this guy? And I'm like, who is he? He's like, he's a pretty good stick. I'm like, but he's having some trouble with his 403. And I'm like, all right, I'm at this Hampton Inn, you know, give him my, you know, tell him I'm here and I'm going to stay here till he needs, you know, some help, and give him my phone number. And he came, and I worked with him on it. And, you know, he had a problem with it. And I was just like, I got to swap your prop out before we can have service take a look at this and really fix it. That is something I will say about the Torqeedo motors. They're not disposable. They're fixable. Yeah. And we have a good service team that does that. I say I'm still a member of Team Torqeedo. You know, yep. I've moved on to employer, you know, different employer with Boondocks, and I'm loving it. But I'm still Torqeedo guy through and through.
Now, did you ever have any, you know, I guess, aspirations of fishing high level tournaments? Or you seem, just from the outsiders looking in, it seems like you just love fishing and kayaking, and seems to be that's where your love and passion is, along with obviously following these guys around because of who you've worked for. But yeah, did you, like Gene, you know, he did his YouTube thing forever, but he's like, you know what, I'm going to go do the tournament thing for a year and then back off after that. Have you ever thought about any of that kind of stuff? Because I've heard that you fished some, you know, higher level stuff and did very well, but it just doesn't seem like something that's your main pursuit in life.
I have two sons, Sawyer, who's getting ready to, we're actually taking him to Loyola, Baltimore. He's starting college a semester early. Not at all competitive. Like, he's incredibly intelligent, but we had him in sports as a kid, but like, to him, it was more the social aspect of, you know, being part of the team. Yep. It wasn't, he didn't have the go for the throat kill instinct that my second son has, and that's Cooper. And he is a competitor. He's going to race you to the car. He's going to beat you at something, and you may not know it, but he's going to win. Always. He is a competitor through and through. And he's actually, we got a varsity basketball game that I think he's going to start in tomorrow. He's a sophomore in high school playing varsity. He's good. He's a good point guard. Yeah. He works at it. Really good work ethic. But I talk about my two sons to say there are people that are natural born competitors, and then there are people that just aren't. And I'm not. Yeah. I'm more of an educator and a collaborator, and I want to teach and I want to learn. And if I'm competing, I don't want you to know what I know. I don't.
Yep.
But who I am, I want you to know what I know. And that's why that YouTube channel is enormous. If I was a competitor, I wouldn't put half the stuff up there. I just wouldn't do it. And I'd be a sad human being, because I enjoy the teaching and I enjoy the learning. And when I film people that do these competition, when I chase Drew Gregory for 3 days on the Susquehanna on my home water, and he teaches me something about it. Same thing with Russ. Fished with Russ before and after, and he's teaching me things that I don't know. That's really cool. Yes. Like, that is, I wouldn't have thought, you know. Same thing with Christine. You know, to see them approach a piece of water I know really well and do something completely different and be very successful. I was like, this is cool. Don't get me wrong. Really hard to only have that video camera in my hand and not a fishing rod with them, but it's rewarding because I'm learning. And I will tell you, there are some things that I have the privilege of filming people doing, you know, really amazing things that they'll tell me afterwards. Can you not put that in? Can you leave that out?" And I say, "Yes. This is part of the deal. If there's something you don't want in there."
With some juice or a secret or something that they've done
Yeah.
that's outside of
Yeah. But do
Yeah.
you know who absorbs that information?
you.
Oh yeah.
And
I get that
and it
quite
would
a
be a
bit, even
betrayal
though,
if I were doing it. That being
Yep.
said, my buddy, my good buddy Jed, when I was managing the Wilderness Systems team, Jed Plunkert, who was runner-up the year that Kurt Smits won, I think, in the national championship. And I think 3 years in a row he was top 10, I think. And then he dropped off the face of the earth. He didn't really, but he changed careers and became a firefighter and did all the swiftwater rescue stuff and did a couple local tournaments. But like Mid-Atlantic in the local, those tournaments, when he shows up, everyone's like, "Yeah, we're all fishing for second." And it's because he's just a beast of a stick, myself including. If he's in it and I'm in it, I'm fishing for second. But he wrote me into doing the tournaments because I was managing the pro staff team, and he's like, come do this kayak anglers, Pennsylvania tournament. I'm like, no. He kept on me. He's like, just come do one. I'm like, I really should, because like I'm managing a team and I'm recruiting people based on this tournament thing. So I need that ground level perspective. And I did a couple, and for a couple of years in a row, he got me to be his tournament partner in the River Bassin series. And he and I set a tournament series record we were a team. It was a team total thing. So 3 of his fish and 3 of mine. And it was 123.75 inches.
Holy crap. On
couldn't
6
even
fish.
imagine.
6
Yeah.
fish.
Yeah. One of them was a 6 pound, 10 ounce. This is a story I get to tell in my tournament because that's about it. That's probably most of what you're going to get. I did do the open a few years ago, and I think I got 7th, and I hadn't pre-fished. I just kind of showed up.
Just went fishing.
All right, let's just go catch some fish.
It was like Jeff. It was like Alex Jackson showing up this year at the NC. I just got back in the country, and the next thing you know, paddling away, slaying the fish because he's just going fishing.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it for me. If I'm going to do a tournament, I can't fish like I'm in a tournament. Like I have to turn that part of my brain off. It's hard to do though.
Yeah.
It's hard to do when you plunk your $200 down to just, I'm just fishing. It's hard to
see, it's like Jeremy, Matt, and I will go to like the bigger, just because again, we like to meet people and stuff like that. But I get that all the time on my channel too, because, smaller channel and I'm just fishing like a lot of local stuff. But I sign up for a lot of these because I'm more interested in meeting other kayak anglers and, doing the whole social thing. And everybody's like, dude, you show all the fish that you catch, you show where you fish, you catch. I'm like, it's just like kind of like you say, if you went to someplace I caught fish and you caught fish because you saw my video, I did my job. And I want that for anybody, whether they're tournament fishing or just taking their kids out or getting into kayak fishing on their own for the first time. I'm going to show you everything I see. I don't care if you beat me. I'm not there to catch. Live. Yeah, and Matt does it live on Twitch. We're there to kind of show people what we know and how much really we're trying to capture the experience and how much fun it is.
During the Challenge Series Championship, I was live both days. Well, I was live the entire time for the whole tournament, from lines in, lines out.
Yeah, and so anybody who's never been to Guntersville, you can see where we caught every single one of those fish.
The cool thing for me is I'm not super competitive either, but I do have it. Not killer. Okay.
We're like that during the tournament.
So when line's in and you get that first fish, then it's
I don't want to tell you that I'm not competitive once I'm locked in. It's you have the mentality of I'm going to war because I'm going to win.
Yeah. Mine's not that.
I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy that feeling. But when I've done well, I just turn that off. because I
Right.
have to, because I'm not comfortable in that space.
The one thing that helps me is because I stream almost all the time when I fish.
Yeah.
I try to treat it just like a normal day out on the water with Jeremy and JT. I mean, but it's still, it creeps in, especially day 2 for me. After I got my first limit ever, I was like, I got to get a limit. I got to get a limit. I got to get a limit. And I didn't hardly talk at all. You know, it was because I talk to my chat all the time and respond to it. And it's like having someone in the boat with me, except I've got like 25, 30 people in the boat with me.
Yeah.
And
a different experience.
It's really awesome. It's great. It makes days go by really, really quick. But just in a tournament setting, it's like, okay, I'm focus faced, and you know.
So promoting this episode, you guys did a post and tagged me on Instagram, and I shared it to my story, and it basically said, what questions do you have? So I know you have some questions, but I got one that came to me directly from Ryan McCord. And Ryan wants to know, what happens to all of the smallmouth in the tributaries of the Susquehanna in the winter? They're gone. Mm-hmm. I got a case study. I say case study. It makes it sound like I'm an official researcher, but like I had a really good tributary of the Susquehanna that I was catching, upper 4s, close to 5. I didn't break 5 on it in the middle of July. And for a fish to be that thick, way up in a creek, like 25 miles or more up from the mouth of the creek in the Susquehanna, there's something going on there, and, a lot of 20+ inch fish way up this creek. And it was a blast. Like, I really enjoy fishing that small water and catching fish that big. And I really decided I got to figure out where these winter holes are, because I had learned how to catch them. And, really what is a winter hole? Fishing smaller rivers down in Virginia, the Rappahannock, the North Fork and the South Fork, Shenandoah, and even smaller ones like Goose Creek, which flows into the Potomac. And, so I said, it can't be any different than them. So let me do what I do to figure out where the winter holes are, which you start in August, and then September, October, leading into winter, and you float the same 2 or 3 sections, and you'll see them, they're, if I go top to bottom on the screen, and this is your float trip, in August, they're like everywhere you go along that whole float, they're evenly spread out. And then you get into, normally in September, you're like, there's a bunch here, but then you go through a little section, there's not as many, and then there's a bunch here. Then you get into October and you float this whole section, and they're all in this pool, and then not as many, and you get in this and they're all in this pool. November, December, it's like they're on this pool, on that side of it, on this log, and they're all there. And then you go through all this, and then you go to that last pool, and you find the spot within the spot in November. November is so critical for figuring out these wintering areas. And it really has to do with how they handle what conditions we have going on right now with all that rain. Where that Susquehanna wasn't quite at flood stage, but it got up a bit. In the winter, they need high water refuge. Like when the river really comes up, they got to have that creek mouth to jump up into, or whatever that big current deflector is. Anyways, I said, I'm going to figure out these winter holes in this tributary. Hey, Chad. I never did. Chad actually, he was on this creek with me a couple times when he and I fished it that summer. And going into that fall, I fished it in September until about like the 3rd week of September. And beyond that, and I'm catching, 18, 19, 20 inch fish all the time. I get to that 3rd week of September and the bottom drops out. Yeah. I'm like, where do they go? I'm like, all right, I got to figure it out. And structurally, I figured there was two places, two poles that I'm like, structurally, this area can handle a big slug of water and not really be flushed out. It's deep and wide, and there's structures that there's going to be less flow that they can, yes, Chad, they climb trees. It made sense. But then I fished it in November and December, and I think I went once in January, and I caught like an 11-inch fish, and I'm like, and I could see some carp, but it was really clear water, and I'm like, I'm just not seeing them. So I was like, okay, those fish that are there all summer, they winter in the river. They all draw back down. They go back and winter in the Susquehanna River. Now, if there's a dam or something in between, yeah, you can have them where they winter in that pool that the dam creates. But they, those fish in that tributary, and in a lot of the Susquehanna tributaries, Ryan, they're gone. Just go fish the river, man. Go fish the river in the tributaries. Excuse me, the tributaries that you love, Ryan. You need to go back to them in like the second week of March and fish the heck out of the mouths, because they're going to go back there. They're going to stack up like cordwood in looking for that first really warm rain that allows them to run upstream and go back up to where they want to spawn up in these tributaries, and they want to eat because there's a lot of food, but they don't like getting stuck up there in winter when the river can go low, or the creek can go low, and it's they don't want to get stuck.
When do you give up and say it's either too cold or because does the rivers freeze up? I mean, I don't know how wide. I heard like the Susquehanna gets like a mile wide, but is there a point in time where, like, you say February or January, that you're just like, nope, not going to mess with it. It's not worth going out even to try to catch one, or usually you literally catch them year round?
Usually all the boat shows get in the way of my fishing.
Right.
Truly.
Got you.
Right now, I want to go tomorrow. I got too much to do before I launch on this next trip starting on Monday.
Okay.
Like I said, we're Sawyer's going to college. We're moving him into his dorm room on Sunday, and Saturday is going to be my day to pack my truck and get ready to go. And tomorrow I got more to do. So it's killing me that I can't go tomorrow, because it is high. And there are places I know where they just stack in really good. But I don't know if you watch me on Instagram, it's Jeff Little Kayak Fishing on Instagram. You'll see videos from me last year launching the kayak where it's like a big old slushy. And I've caught him in 32.4 degree water, but people catch him through the ice. Don't worry about temperature, but do worry about safety. And
yes. Because I know one of the, a lot of people ask about, dry suits and things like that for wintertime safety. He's got lots and lots of good videos on that. I mean, anything you see that's out recent, he's already in his NRS suit and, been protected for a while.
Yeah.
So I did have somebody sneak a question in. Of course, how they, says, is the new Torpedo coming out worth it to upgrade from the 1103?
I don't know yet. I was part of a lot of the upgrades, and I'll tell you a few of them. The pipe that comes out, the cable that comes out of the top, that thing flexes a lot, and the wire gets weak in there. They thicken that up. That is a really good thing. Like if you use this on a professional level, and I mean like Jody Queen just running it, I don't know how many days, he told me once how many days a year he's on the water. I'm actually getting his old Pro Angler at the end of this trip. He's selling it and getting a new one, and I'm getting all that mojo. But yes, you that part is is going to be better. There's little things like the pulley at the top. The throttle itself has a backlit display, so when when it's not light out or when it got dark and you want to come in, you don't have to like take your phone and put the flashlight, say, oh, I have 22% left.
Right.
It'll be backlit. It'll have the Bluetooth technology in the throttle that will connect to the Torque Link app here, which gives you a lot more information about tracking your trip. And Chad keeps chiming in, man. Yes, they're gonna have a metal steering triangle. Do you want to take over, Chad? Like keep listing what's better.
He was
There's
texting me talking about the next year's weight loss program, and then I was like, oh, we're live with Jeff. So I didn't figure it'd take long before we drug him in, to come in and pop into the chat.
Keep chiming in, man. The skeg that's on the bottom won't be metal anymore. It's going to be a tongue and groove, really dense, hard rubber, which sounds like, well, why didn't you just stick with the metal one? That one's like bomb proof. I think it's good because when you hit rocks with it, it doesn't go quam and just spook every fish around, and like that loud noise is
when you may not crack something and you can replace it. Like, I mean,
yeah, you're not going to have to replace it. So I actually, when I was there in April, I took it, and actually one of the engineers was like, I'm going to hold this up. I want you to step on the side. I'm like, I'll break it. And he's like, no, you're not. And I stomped on it. And the skeg was like, and then bounced back. I think it's actually the same rubber that when they sold all those motors to Lowrance and Garmin that they use for their props. So really good material.
So improvements they'd be working on are actually improving the unit itself, kind of increasing the quality even more. Not so much about horsepower, speed, and all that, because I think even in our tournament stuff, we're limited to what, 3 horse, or is there a limit? I don't know.
Sure.
I've run a 45-pound thrust Minn Kota in my autopilot, so I don't know what all that speed and
the 1103 is a 105-pound thrust. And I don't know that this new one is the same. It could be stronger, it could be the same, it could be less. I don't know. I have one, but I don't have the battery. So they have to send the battery to me so I can do the speed and range testing. And I will test it on the Wilderness Systems Attack 140, which is one of the fastest ones that I've ever tested it. And that boat I got up to 7.4 mile per hour with the current motor, the 1103. I want to know, how does it stack up? And it drives me nuts that I can't tell you that yet. So I'm waiting on the battery.
That'd be cool though.
Else, but
now I did want to back up because Matt and I and Jeremy in our little Freedom Squad chat were having a discussion earlier this week. And I was like, we were talking about, Matt had talked earlier about he had ripped the anchor trolley thing out of his kayak, and that will let some water in.
Yeah.
And he was talking about maybe getting another one. And I said, well, if we're going to be fishing a lot more times on the river, you probably don't want an anchor trolley. You want an anchor wizard. And he asked why. And I said, that would be a great question for Jeff when he comes on.
Okay, so I'll explain my application and how I use it now.
He's going to draw something, I know.
That's fine. I have an RS 117, and I'm a paddle only. And when it's windy, I like to be able to position my boat, anchor up, and let the wind either I fish into the wind or with the wind at my back, depending on what cover or wherever.
No, we fish a lot of lakes.
So
when he's talking like
now, river fishing, what's the difference, and why do I not want this?
First off, if you're putting an anchor on your kayak, you need a knife on your PFD. I actually did a
I got scissors.
Instagram reel about it's a Scallywag tactical dive knife, and you got to be able to cut that line quickly if you get into trouble. I mentioned earlier in this, there's been 2 times in my life that I was in my early 20s and thought, it's been a good run, I'm about to die. One was hypothermia related, the other was related to an anchor. And the only reason I got out of that situation is that my friend Kurt came behind, because he had a knife on his PFD, and he came behind and he cut me loose, and he saved my life. So you have to have that that knife attached to your PFD. It can't be tucked away in this pocket underneath your tackle box. It can't be down in a pocket and it's one that you unfold. And it needs to be something that you're not going to fumble, because you grab it, pull it off, and you cut. If you don't have that, you're vulnerable with any anchor. I keep the Anchor Wizard. I use the low profile cranks. I got one going forward and one going back, and they're seated close to where I sit, so that it's good leverage, but it's also quick access for that knife. If the anchor gets stuck, I can just pop it and say, I'll buy a new anchor. The anchor trolley thing, I think it can work on, in a lot of situations, but I don't think a river is one of them, because, yes, you can use it in, say the current's going this way and you can go off the front and I'm using my little syringes for mixing resin for making, I got my rod building station. That's what this is. Anyhow, the anchor's here, and you'll swing on it a little bit, and that's fine. But if you move the anchor trolley, that loop, to somewhere in the middle, and you're hanging by that with the current coming down, it's just going to hit you sideways, and that can flip you. If you wanted to come off the back, you can slide that ring towards the back, and then it's you're anchored off the back, and that's okay. I don't know. I use two of them, and I mostly use two of them in the winter, because I don't want the back of it swinging back and forth. I want to drop that rear anchor and really double anchor off front and the back. I get stopped. And when you have your rod up like this and the line coming down like this, you want to have that as still as possible, so that when they go pop on that hair jig, that you can feel that, where if there's a bow in the line, because your kayak is swinging from side to side in the wind, you're not, and you have a little bit of slack, and he pops it, and when you come back to it, you feel him spit it out. You don't catch him. So double anchoring in winter is a pretty important part. I go over that and all. I mean, I really show it in my winter river smallmouth fishing. And
yeah, we've seen that quite a bit in the last couple. Jeremy was making a note of that, because I was like, oh, I got an Anchor Wizard, but if we're gonna be doing more river stuff, he's like, you're gonna want one for the back too. And I was like, and then you had a video that he pointed me to, and I was like, I see what you mean.
I will tell you, I don't use them in the capacity that people use drag chains.
Right.
It's not how I'm using it. People say, I want to slow my drift.
Yeah, you're sitting, you're staying
point upstream, get a motor.
You're spot locking old school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're truly spot locking old school.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna roll through. Matt, if you got anything else, I'm gonna look through these Instagram questions. He wants to know, the Aquamarine wants to know if you're going to be at the NC in April.
Things are so up in the air with I don't know. I'd like to.
Yeah, with you taking a new job, I mean, you probably don't even know what your life is going to look like in 24 yet.
I don't know my marketing budget, and that's the big hurdle. I know that visiting dealers is a priority, and that's where I'm headed next. Texas and Louisiana. You want to hear a list?
Oh yeah.
I say that now. I have the wrong clipboard.
This guy's really detail oriented too. Trust me. When we were talking to him about editing that video, he goes, "Yeah, I make notes of all of the stuff," and I'm like, "Oh my goodness."
I'm gonna go quick. Hammerhead Kayaks in Mobile, Alabama. Everything Kayak and Bicycle in Gulfport, Mississippi. Massey's in New Orleans. No Wake Outfitters, which is also near New Orleans. The Backpacker in Baton Rouge. Pack and Paddle in Lafayette. Ship to Shore in Lake Charles. I'm going to go see Josh Duffel. Fishing Tackle Unlimited in Houston. And yeah, there's two of them in Houston. I'm going to see Joe Acala at Roy's Bait and Tackle in Corpus Christi. I will see Mike at Fin Factory, also in Corpus Christi, and maybe see their San Antonio store on the way north. Kerrville Kayak and Canoe. TG Canoe and Kayak, which I haven't been to, but I feel like I know those guys from Jameson's his road trip angler videos of those guys. No Bad Days Kayak in Pflugerville, Mountain Sports, Mariner Sales in a place called All Marine Wholesale, which I don't know what they are. I'm going to go meet them.
Excellent.
That's that's how I line them up and go see them and show them new product like our console, and there's other stuff. Just
all right. Before JT gets you to those questions, I want to circle back to some stuff you talked about, and then I want you to just say how important it is. You talked about positioning your boat and different strokes and stuff. How important is it for people to actually understand how to paddle a kayak, and how important is the paddle?
Oh, yeah. Good question.
How important is the paddle? I've done so much work to promote and show people how to use motors. But when I'm out on Lake Erie with Chuck Earls and 7-footers that are starting to break, guess what's in my lap? Guess what's not tucked in a paddle holder? I have it across my lap, because when you get hit sideways by a breaking wave, when you have that paddle in your lap, you can do a massive sweep stroke, you can do a brace, you can do all sorts of things with the paddle, but not if it's tucked away. When things get nasty, that thing will save you more than anything else. It keeps you upright, and it's my Linus blanket when things are nasty on the water. I gotta have it in my lap for safety reasons. In terms of actually doing the paddling, efficiently and having correct form, which is some of the stuff I'm going to be teaching in these classes again. It's about efficiency and it's about stealth. Efficiency in terms of you're not straining, certain muscle groups more than other, and not straining like shoulder injury, stuff like that. You're going to last longer over the course of the day. And even in terms of your ability to navigate, for sure, whitewater, you pull the motor and you got to paddle that stuff to navigate it properly. The same can be said with, big water. When you have big breaking waves, you have to be able to do a really quick sweep stroke so that chasing, crumbling, breaking wave doesn't just kind of turn you sideways and flip you. I mean, I think we have a lot of false sense of security saying, I'm good, I got a motor, I'm good, I got a pedal drive. The paddle is something that not enough people are proficient at, and because of that, they're vulnerable. And that's why I want to get back into teaching the paddling skills.
Sounds like somebody.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to like the seminars and whatever you have, with Drew, because I've said this year I want to do one Bassmaster event, a KBF event, and then one of Drew's events. And well, he may have two that might be close enough, but everybody talks about the Susquehanna, so it's like that just may have to be something we go do. But and not just, because Matt asked that too, because we're both disabled vets with busted up shoulders and every other broken part, but we're old, you get over 50 and you start doing sports like this, you want to be in better shape and things like that too. But we've learned the benefit of a, however many dollar Walmart paddle versus what a, quality Bending Branches or some of the other higher end lightweight, so that you can do that much more with it too. So yeah, save. If you're going to save the money for a good quality kayak, save the money for a good quality paddle as well.
That should be your second purchase. So it should be kayak, PFD, and then paddle.
Yeah.
Yep. So the only reason I was asking that was that I paddle only. I don't have a motor.
Yep.
And that's the way I've been since I got my kayak.
Right.
I've seen your videos, and I really watched Chad's on. That really helped me. But I think I will take a class of yours because I do have a torn rotator cuff. Like it's non-repairable. Like I can't do anything. And you can ask these guys after a tournament day of a several day tournament, I'm toast. I'm done. it's hard.
I will tell you this, that if you're doing it right, most of your power that moves the kayak forward or backwards or sideways is it starts between your knee and your nipple. That section of your core is everything, and it's a lot of upper leg. People don't understand that paddling is really a upper leg based. You get a lot of power there if you're locking in.
Then I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm just saying that. So people who have motors or pedals, I don't think they need to understand or know how to paddle. I was just trying to get that point across to you of how important
definitely
that
have to
skill
learn.
really is.
Yep.
So, all right, JT, what you got for him?
Really, that's all. I mean, everything else was just basic. What's your favorite fish? Stuff like that too. I will ask, just because we love promoting Catch because they're a good partner of the channel. What's your and I'm only asking this because you have the opportunity to fish a lot of places around the country because you travel a lot. On the Catch board, what's your biggest largemouth and what's your biggest smallmouth?
Specifically on a Catch board, not when I measured him years ago on whatever other device I had.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure, but we love talking about
You gotta have the official cat.
Yeah, I don't. The longest smallmouth I've caught was in the Rappahannock. It was 22.5 inches. But that was way before probably even the hog trough existed.
yeah.
The longest largemouth, I don't even know. I mean, I got one. Was it last spring? It was the spring before, down in South Carolina, that I know was 8 pound 1 ounce, but I don't know the length on it.
Gotcha.
And I
my biggest
mentioned
largemouth was 867, but that was way before I was even in a kayak. So
yeah.
Excellent.
The heaviest smallmouth was that 610 on the Susquehanna, which Susquehanna doesn't make fish like that normally. There's a lot of upper fours.
610 smallie. Holy cow.
That's just unfathomable. I mean, it's crazy to me.
I've been to Canada and I've caught like a 5 pounder and thought it was going to break my rod. It was in 3 foot of water. Like, so it was not, I'm just like, I can't even imagine fighting a 6 pounder.
Yeah. In heavy current.
Oh my goodness.
Was flooding.
That would be wild. I mean, that had to be something else.
And they're even stronger.
Yeah.
River fish are even stronger just because of the current, fighting all that current all the time. This was a lake fish in Lake of the Woods. So I was.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. We're getting close to 90 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time, but I would love to invite you back sometime later on when you get, a little spare time and things slow down, because I really, really, really want to focus on smallies this year. And I would love to just have an episode where we just dedicate to smallmouth fishing and kayaks. And,
sure.
You give so many great tips in your videos, but I think some people, I mean, I've got a small channel myself, but I know that every one of us that invites other people on, you always introduce people to a different audience. And, that's kind of how we as creators even grow, is by like even live streams like this. If I brought 10 people to your channel tonight that had never seen your work before, I hope that they throw it up on the big screen and spend all weekend of this frozen tundra winter that we have coming.
Please dig into the playlist.
Binge. You will learn a lot from this guy. This is a guy who will at some point have 100,000 plus when the people who want to learn something actually start watching him.
Well, his videographer skills are really, really good too. Like, you're a very good videographer. Like,
we are one of the most underrated YouTube channels in the fishing space that I know of, and I know that's gonna one of these days. I mean, that's YouTube for you, but one of these days you put out such great content that I can't not watch myself.
It comes back to what we had said at the beginning. It's important to make as many people better at kayak fishing, more successful. I want people, I want everyone I come into contact with to enjoy the sport more because they're more successful. Because I make a living in this industry, but also just because I don't know, I want people to love it as much as I do and be successful and stick around doing it.
Now,
I do
I'm going
make
to
my
ask you,
living in this, and I'm going to put a little plug in here, and it's not just going to be for boondocks. I will talk about boondocks and how I'm really happy to be working for a company that employs our fellow Americans, and they do great work with, you know, all the different metal fabrication they do down there in Thomasville, North Carolina. But I'm going to talk about all of our US based manufacturing kayak fishing accessories. Catch is a great American company.
yes,
Yak Attack is a great American company who's really good at the injection mold plastic. You know, a lot of our different manufacturers that are not just hitting the easy button and ordering another shipment of plastic out of China, because China is they're professionals at they're copycat artists. They look at what's selling, and it erodes and it undermines our innovation. You know, we do a lot of great innovating in this sport, and when we're ripped off, you know, sometimes those copycat companies have really good lawyers, and you can't go toe to toe with them and win. You can't. Our system is set up for who can afford the better lawyer, not who actually has just intellectual property. So look at where your stuff is made, and be patrons of those US based manufacturers, all of them. And if they're not, I don't know, think about your fellow Americans, and think about, do I like new cool stuff that's made by people here that you know are going to continue to make cool stuff.
That's and it's quality.
Yep.
Like, I mean, there's a reason why all the crap from China it's so cheap, because you just replace it. There's nothing anymore that lasts, I feel. So soapbox, sorry.
Excellent. Nope, I understand. Hey, we are all 100% pro Buy American and support, you know, take care of the people that are take care of us, for sure. But Jeff, I do look forward someday down the road, at some point, maybe we can drag and get on a creek or a river with you one of these days.
That'd be fun.
I keep saying Freedom Squad loves to get out and fish with as many different people as we can. And you know, we thoroughly enjoy it too, just because we love the fellowship on the water, and we love to promote this sport to bring our fellow veterans out from playing video games year round and enjoy the outdoors as recreational therapy. It helps us three and those, you know, those others that have joined on the Freedom Squad Army as well. We just love that kind of stuff. And I'm going to encourage you, and I'm going to pester Chad about this later, but if you can find a free weekend next year when we have the Knucklehead Hero Cup, I think if Chad threw a team up there to have people come fish on your team, that would be a blast, because the first season we had this year was absolutely phenomenal. Cool. And we just got to meet so many different people. So I would love for Chad to set you up with a team and promote, you know, the recreational side of the tournament side, but it's the fun side of this too, because that's what we're all about.
I do a little cooking too. just a little.
Yeah, he's been known to make a little barbecue. When he has Gene running back over to get seconds, you know it's done right.
Right.
Well, anything, let's just put it, Gene's gonna eat no matter what, okay?
Gene's not gonna eat no barbecue if it's not better than his. You know, we've had that discussion.
Well, that's true.
But again, we want to thank you, Jeff, for joining us tonight.
Sure, enjoy it.
Your time. Enjoy it, and man, thanks a bunch. For everybody out there listening and watching, as always, get outside when you can and make some memories, one cast at a time.
Not everybody.